Hello, everyone. My name is Victor. I am the Occult technician, and this is Mind War. Season 2, Episode 12.
Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar.
Jehovah on the beat.
Yeah! Slutty gang shit, man. You already know what it is, man. Rest in peace, Montana, man. Saginaw shit. I got a couple niggas with a lot of choppers. They come to your crib like, what's up? 30 shots and dope for your gun up. We don't drop out, we don't run up. We sit in your crib till you get home, and I know that's about 4-something. So quit with that tough talk. My niggas thought that gun talk. I was this on Twitter be no. My cuz 12 deep in the streets. I smoke a blunt with him till your kid peeps. Now your mother, brother, and dog deceased. Cause your bitch ass steady arguing over a bitch boy. Come get your bitch boy. She all on a slutty dick boy. Slide in like she sick boy. I'm from Sag Nasty, get a real boy. 3 bottles all double seal boy. Off a cookie blunt and a pill boy. No toy guns, no real guns. Bustin' gas, that's real fun. She get a teen brain, but she real dumb. She let slutty niggas in her crib, and we might just steal some. I'm a real nigga.
That was Fresh Face with his hit song, Sag Nasty. Welcome back to the Mind War podcast, folks. I'm glad you're here. We have a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. So today, folks, we are going to look at an article from the University of Arizona. This was written in October 31st, 2023 by author Renan Rajal. And the title of this article is Loneliness versus Being Alone. So researchers examine the relationship between loneliness and being alone. A new study finds that solitary time does not closely correlate with feelings of loneliness, unless a person spends 75% of their time alone. Let's learn a little more about being alone versus loneliness. In a world filled with endless connections and constant communication, the relationship between loneliness and aloneness is not always clear. Now, University of Arizona researchers have analyzed that relationship and found that they are two different things that are not closely correlated. People don't feel lonely until they spend 3/4 of their time alone, the study found. However, when their alone time goes beyond 75%, it becomes difficult for them to avoid feelings of loneliness. We are learning more and more about the importance of social connections for human health, and it appears that loneliness and isolation are related but distinct concepts. Feeling lonely is different from being alone. So, folks, we see over the last few years that there has been a rise in what they call the epidemic of aloneness or the epidemic of loneliness. I first came across this article while watching an episode of Coffee with Scott Adams, a podcast hosted by cartoonist Scott Adams. He is famously known for his cartoon Dilbert. He was, canceled a few years ago for talking about basically if there are people in the world, and he unfortunately used race as part of this, but he basically was saying that if there are people in your community that you have surrounded yourselves with that hate you, that you should get away from them, right? And, whether you agree with that or not, that's fine. Again, he used some kind of racially charged language, and that's why he was ultimately canceled, but he has been thriving quite a bit since. And if you haven't seen Coffee with Scott Adams, it's not bad. He's kind of still caught in the left versus right boomer paradigm, but his show can be fun at times. He is a trained hypnotist also, so those of you that are fans of the Mind War know that we talk about hypnotism quite a bit. So he has some interesting points as you listen. But one of the things that Scott said that he thinks why we have moved more into spending more time alone, right? In this, having this epidemic of loneliness. He talked about how during the COVID lockdowns and during the whole COVID situation, that people became afraid of COVID, the actual virus, and of getting sick, right? And so I thought to myself, there's probably a percentage of people out there who truly did feel that way, that they were worried that they were going to get sick. And I understand, as someone with a health condition like myself, if I got COVID, it would really wipe me out, right? So, but I kind of thought there was also a huge group of people, probably the majority of people, truly weren't afraid of COVID. And it was more the restrictions and the environment that was created around the COVID issue that probably kept a lot of people from going out. They just didn't want to deal with some of these new restrictions and some of these new kind of draconian social, requirements that were happening at that time. And so I think that might be part of it. But also, when we look over the last few years and we see this kind of deterioration of the social structure, the breakdown of the social order, and we see violence and criminality flourishing today, we see people really kind of at their breaking point. Everyone seems to be just exhausted and on their last, their last rope. They just can't take it anymore. And that seems to be breaking out more and more during the just the general day as we live our lives. When you compound this kind of social breakdown with the idea that, inflation has made everything so much more expensive today. People can't afford to even go out and do the things that they used to do. And then, those are more of the social issues that we deal with that might cause one to spend more time alone and spend less time venturing out into society, into different social interactions. But then when you take it into a personal level, where people are spending more time alone versus maybe spending time with family and friends. Again, if you look back at the last few years, that have been so divisive based on whether it was the COVID issue or just politics in general. Two things that truly, for the majority of Americans, have almost no effect, right? What happens in politics, what happens with COVID, really, for most people, it had no real effect on their lives except these artificial barriers that we were placing in front of each other. So when you go and spend time with your family over the last few years or with your friends, and if they, unfortunately, the way it is in America today with the left and right, blue and red paradigm, right? If you're not exactly in the same camp, you're going to face issues, right? People are going to be arguing with you. People really took it to just kind of the darkest recesses of the human thought process, right? They were just attacking each other based off of these issues that really, truly had no effect on their life whatsoever. So again, if you go to someone's house that you would used to spend a lot of time with, and you find yourself over the last few years that every time you go there, you're being attacked for something that you believe or disbelieve, right? Of course, you're going to want to spend less time with those people. And, one thing that I've learned over the last few years, again, this is really about the third year now that I've been living alone. I am a middle-aged man, and this is the first time I've lived alone in my entire life. In the beginning, I lived with my parents, and then I was off to the military. Then I was living with my wife and kids at the time. And again, now I've found myself over the last few years living alone. And there was some adjustment that needed to be made, but I've found for me personally that I love being alone. The ability to go throughout my day on my time and do the things that I need to do. It has been a very calming situation and scenario for me, right? Again, here in the Mind War, we're always talking about that Aristos, the best possible scenario for our current situation. My situation, I find myself living alone, and I've created a scenario where it works well. I've been able to spend a lot of time with very low stress. I'm not putting myself in stressful situations anymore. I'm avoiding those type of things, right? And I've been able to focus on things that are important to me, like art, everything that you see here, the podcast, just a lot of learning and research, right? And trying to become a healthier person. It's interesting when you're alone, you do have so much more control over your own environment. It's easier to filter in the things that are healthy versus unhealthy, right? So the reason that I wanted to talk about this today is if you find yourself in a situation where you are spending more and more time alone, the first thing that's important to do is don't panic, okay? If this is the first time that you've been alone in a while and you kind of recognize like, oh, wait a minute, I'm on my own here, don't panic, okay? Let it sink in, look around and understand that everything's going to be fine. And allow yourself to become more comfortable with being alone. And then once you start to accept it and once you start to appreciate it, be very careful not to let other people in your life demean you for it, okay? Because one of the things that's going to happen is as you find comfort in your solitude, people who don't feel comfortable being alone, people who have this need to constantly be around others, they're going to start attacking you. They're going to start coming after you, whether it's family or friends, coworkers, whoever it might be. Because what happens is they start to fear this idea that someday they're going to be alone. So they're going to try to attack you, right? They're going to try to tell you that you're doing something wrong by being alone. But don't let them fool you, okay? There's nothing wrong with it. If it gets to a point in your life where being alone does say you get past that 75% of alone time, I'm well past that, folks, and I'm doing great here. If you get past that point to where being alone now does feel lonely and it's starting to affect you emotionally, right? Make sure you reach out. Make sure you're conscious of when you go past that breaking point, let's say, right? Where you just don't feel comfortable anymore. You feel like you need to reach out to somebody. Make sure you do that, okay? Find the family and friends that you have. I know they're out there. Check with people on social media. Reach out to whoever you have in your life, okay? Don't be afraid to do that once that, being alone, once that alone time gets a little too heavy for you. But really, again, enjoy this time. This is, something that may change in the future. We may not be able to spend as much alone time as we do today. So if this is the situation that you found yourself in and you're starting to be comfortable in your aloneness, enjoy it. Take advantage of it. Don't waste that time. Make sure you get your rest, but also use it to upgrade yourself. Do your exercise, take care of yourself, clean your home, do your research, do all the things that you need, that when you do go back out into society and you start spending more time with people, that you are going to be even better than you were before. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Folks, here on the Mind War podcast, we've been studying military psychological operations. We work from books like Mind War and First Earth Battalion, both written by lieutenant colonels in the United States Army. We take the military psyop tactics that we learn in these books, and we apply those tactics to our personal lives in order to overcome issues that we deal with. So, one of the most important parts of any learning, of any study that we do, of course, is research. And one of the most important parts of research is experimentation. And the experiment that we're going to talk about here today, I like to call Operation So-So. So for this experiment, I wanted to work in a familiar environment. I wanted to work in an environment where I could have basically predetermined answers, right? So, as a longtime fan of comedy, which many of you who've been watching the Mind War podcast know that I'm a big comedy fan. I love comedy podcasts. And I have been a longtime fan of the Your Mom's House podcast, starring Tom Segura and Christina P. So I thought, what a better place to do an experiment than an environment, again, with a podcast that I'm very familiar with. And not only am I familiar with the podcast and the stars, but also their fans. The Your Mom's House fans are a very unique group, right? Tom has been really amazing at teaching his fans to be what we call trolls, right? We think of the Your Mom's House fans trolling Garth Brooks. I mean, that is such an epic troll that it has made it into, tabloids that you would find at the grocery store checkout. I mean, it has really reached levels of trolling not seen before. And so I thought, okay, let's do an experiment. Because again, I've been experimenting with trolling over the last few weeks. I've been making comments on all sorts of posts. The funny part that I found is that a lot of the troll comments that I've been making have really been received enthusiastically, and a lot of people have liked them. But this experiment here in this particular troll really got, again, some of those predetermined results I was looking for. So let's first look at the post that I made the comment on. Okay, so this was a post from Tom Segura's Instagram page. And in this post, we see Tom has green screened himself standing behind a fella named Meal_by_Cug. Okay, he's got 1.3 million fans. He seems to be just kind of a silly guy who does cooking or something like that. Again, lots of fans. All of his posts get tons of likes. And so Tom has green screened himself in, standing behind this gentleman as Cug is standing there at his oven cooking some noodles or something, some pasta, right? And so here's Tom, I like to call Tom the CEO of comedy. He's become kind of boring lately. And so, of course, there he is standing behind this guy talking about his boring tour dates, okay? He tried to make it funny by glancing over at the guy like, who's this fella, right? But honestly, okay, joke's on you, bud. So let's take a look for a moment at the post that I made. Okay, so before I went in and made this comment, I wrote down, several different things that I thought would be kind of negative towards the Your Mom's House studio. Again, this is just an experimentation, so please don't take it personally, everybody. I just wanted to see what some of the results would be. And so I knew that I had to use kind of very over-the-top and bombastic negative comments. So I like to consider this really chumming the waters, right? Again, knowing that the Your Mom's House fans are epic trolls, I knew I was going to get a lot of negative responses. And so I really threw out just as much as I could. And so here's my post. And this is what it said. Is this considered joke stealing, right? So the comment starts out right away with a question that, when it comes to comedy, you can't be joke stealing, right? That's a very taboo subject. So right away, I wanted to attack that because, again, Tom just inserted himself into another person's very popular post. That post had 30,000 plus likes at the time. So again, he's just inserting himself in there, again, being boring CEO of comedy Tom, just talking about his tour dates, right? Then I said, Your Mom's House just makes boomer comments over other people's videos. Okay, so much of the Your Mom's House podcast, and the reason that they've become so successful is throughout the years, really what they do is just play other videos on their show and then make funny comments about it. It's really kind of Tom just laughing sadistically while Christina cringes in the corner because much of what he's showing in these videos is usually rather disgusting. It's kind of gratuitous violence, things like that. Funny, don't get me wrong. Again, longtime fan. I have no problem with it. So again, the boomer comments, I think that's pretty fair, right? Your Mom's House, although at one point may have been a little underground, it's definitely mainstream today. It's very watered down. And again, saying that they're boomers, I knew that was going to attract attention, right? So then I go on and I say, seems like joke theft to me. Try coming up with something original. And then I say, oh, wait, you did. 69 minutes, which was a total flop. So, folks, 69 minutes was Tom's attempt, as he says, at, making a real hour of television. It was like a sketch show. And, I think they charged $10 or whatever on their website. All their fans went out and bought it. And again, I knew if I went after something that other people maybe liked, then of course that would get their ire up. And again, I didn't watch 69 minutes. The few sketches that I saw, the few, comments that I saw from it. I mean, you took Danny Brown to your country club and taught him pickleball. That's funny, I guess, man. I mean, the washcloths and the pores. Okay, I mean, this is the state of comedy in 2024, folks, and that's why we're running these types of experiments. So, right away, I started to get a lot of responses to that comment, okay? So within the first 2 hours, it was pretty interesting. A lot of the comments that I got, I actually thought were maybe from sock puppet accounts, okay? So for those of you who don't know what a sock puppet account, it's where one individual makes multiple accounts. This would be, especially for a celebrity like Tom, his PR team, his public relations team, maybe that works with the agency there. They create a bunch of accounts. And then when they see a negative comment come under one of his posts, they can attack. Just one or two people can make it look like 100 people are coming and attacking you, because a lot of those early replies to my comment really felt like they were just trying to get me to delete the comment, but I held strong. It's still up today. And again, with Tom being the king of the trolls, I knew the fan responses would start coming in. So let's take a look at some of those responses. So there was a lot of, who is this guy? Who the fuck are you? Again, my name is Victor. I am the occult technician and host of the Mind War podcast. That's what you're listening to right now. The next, set of comments that I saw repeated over and over again, and I thought this was interesting, is, why does this guy have a blue check? What a loser. He's only got 1,000 followers and he's got a blue check mark, okay? Which is fine. Great. Again, you don't know me. That's okay. The blue check mark what I want to say about that is within the next, I would say 5 to 6 years, so by 2030, all of you are going to be required to have blue check marks to go on social media. One of our major presidential candidates has been talking about this subject quite a bit. And I promise you that in the next few years, we are all going to need to have blue check marks. I'm just getting ahead of the program. Now, next, we saw a lot of comments just saying, sending hate from the state that they live in or sending hate from whatever country that they live in. And now this is just a moniker of your mom's house, sending hate your way. Thank you for the hate. Those of you who are fans of the Mind War podcast and my art over on Instagram, you know that hate is one of the main topics that I focus on. I love hate in all of its forms. I try to study it wherever it comes in whatever form it comes in. And again, that's what this experiment was so great. I knew that I would receive hate in many forms, and I found some very interesting ones. So we're going to take a look first at some of my favorite comments that came in. Let's see this one here. This is from, Super Stoddard. And she says, dude, you taking L's like crazy. Only to come back and take more and shout out your YouTube channel 10 out of 10. Plus Mind War. What, are you Alex Jones? Folks, being compared to Alex Jones this early on in the game, again, I've only been doing the Mind War podcast for about 6 months now, and this is the second time someone has compared me to Alex Jones in the InfoWars show. The first time was from one of Mike Redbar's fans. That's right, folks. In my video, the Red Bar endorses the Mind War podcast. I had a lot of Red Bar fans come over, and I'm telling you what, folks. Again, I am a huge fan of podcasts. The Red Bar fans have been some of the nicest and most gracious fans in all of podcasting. All the flack that he gets and all the flack that his community gets is so unwarranted, all right? I'm telling you, they don't deserve what they get. But since someone brought up Red Bar, let's take a look at another post here. Let's see. This one comes from Drew Down 559, where he says, "Oh no, Tom, him and Red Bar might team up and get thousands of views. Oh no." Mike, can you believe that? Even Tom's fans under his post are trying to rag on us and make fun of us. I cannot believe that, Mike. We can't stand for this, buddy. Another post that I really loved. This guy really nailed me. Let's see. Which one is it here? Oh, this is a great one. Okay. So what really caught my mind with this is, this guy either just looked at my account right away and just kind of glanced at it and then just totally nailed it, or he dove very deep into my content. Either way, very interesting. He says, "Believe me, most half-brain dead people are sick of you mediocre old white dudes and your post-divorce art projects." Laugh my ass off. I mean, folks, my divorce was over a decade ago, but it was heartbreak that led to this 7-year art project that you're watching. Again, we are just in the start of the 3rd year of my 7-year art project. This guy completely nailed it. I mean, I don't know if he dug deep into my content or if he just, again, did a glance and just happened to know, right? So those ones were fun. Now, these next 2 comments I thought were interesting because the other comments came from people that were like myself, had very few followers, right? Most of them weren't blue check marks, but this was from a blue check mark account from a gentleman named Sicky_Dicky. Okay. And he says, "I don't even know what YMH is. nor am I a loyal fan. But I do think Segura is funny, and you're a full-blown nut job. Sicky Dicky, come on, man. How do I deserve you calling me a full-blown nut job? You don't know me, brother. Just one comment that I posted. And now here's the weird part. Again, a guy, I think he had like 700,000 plus followers, right? He comes back to the post to respond once again, and he says, imagine being called out by a nobody. Folks, this is exactly the issue that we're seeing Tom run into right now. So Tom's been taking a lot of flack. We see that lately, calling his fans pores, things like that. And he's been taking a lot of flack for it. And that guy nailed it. When these people, the guy had 700,000 followers, right? He thinks he's somebody, okay? And now he's talking down to someone who just made a simple comment on a celebrity's Instagram page. Why would you insert yourself into that? And why are you demeaning people that, are considered your fans? I think this is a question that a lot of people are asking. So let's look at the post today. This is live now. I'm on Instagram. It currently has 170 likes. So again, thank you folks that are out there. Oops, let me mute that. Let's see. We have 94 replies to my comment. Think of that. I had one kind of over the top, bombastic, negative comment on a very boring, just talk of, mediocre old white guys. That's Tom, right? To have 94 of his fans comment on a negative or reply to a negative comment like that is really kind of interesting. So let's see if there's any that I missed here. He's bigger and richer than you'll ever be. I understand that. That's fine. I like this one here. Crowley is disappointed in your behavior. So again, this is somebody who must have went onto my account, saw that I am a practitioner of the dark arts, and Aleister Crowley being one of the, history's most famous dark magicians, right? So that was kind of cute. I liked that one. Who the fuck are you? There's a lot of those. This is giving small fuzzy nut energies. That's pretty funny. Sending hate from Australia. Again, that's what we were talking about earlier with people just sending hate. Let's see what else we have. A douche alert. That's kind of fun. Let's see. I know you're not that dumb. Why do you have blue check marks? Ha ha. You look so goofy with your bald head and gray old hair beard. What a silly, goofy little fella. Ha ha. I think that's funny because, again, Tom and I, we are the exact same age. We're both white men with bald heads, blue eyes, and white beards. Okay, so that's great. Now this one I really liked. And this one really shined through in what it means to be a Your Mom's House fan. Spicy Little Jack says, I would rather shit in my hands and clap than watch any of your content. That's amazing. I bet this guy is actually shitting in his hands at home. That is pretty amazing. Let's see. Whoomp whoomp. Cool guy. You seem like a cool guy. So, on Your Mom's House, one of the things that they do, again, how I talked about that they just watch other people's videos and make comments, they find what they call cool guys and they highlight them. And then, again, they send their troll army of fans to go attack the cool guys. So, am I in the running to be a cool guy on Your Mom's House? I can only hope. Let's see, holy retard alert. So again, using, language like retard, which is really not socially acceptable anymore. That is exactly a Your Mom's House kind of joke. Go take your meds. Let's see. Who the fuck is this guy? Hex his ass. Someone hurt you. That's a pretty funny one. More hate. Hate from Australia, Dr. Dickhead. So a lot of people call me doctor. I don't understand that. I am definitely not You're not cringe enough for Tom to care. Unfortunately, that might be true. Let's see. Oh, wow. An American flag inside a pyramid. Super original. Oh, wait. You didn't come up with anything original. I really liked that one. He's talking about the art that you see here in front of me. He's talking about the art that you see here on my sweatshirt. This design here, this American flag triangle, this American flag pyramid, I am in the final stages of getting it trademarked. It is my design. And this design was the result of when my grandfather passed away last year, or a couple years ago. And when he did, I made him one of those triangle flag boxes because he was in the U.S. Army. He was taken captive by the Germans during World War II and spent several years in a prisoner of war camp, right? And so this design is an homage to that flag piece of art that I made for him to hold his American flag. So that was very special to me. I like that one. You want attention, not enough followers. Let's see. The only thing you've discovered is these nuts. I'm more surprised you aren't wearing a tinfoil hat. I'm sure you're making one though. And that's right. I do not wear a tinfoil hat. I've not been on the tinfoil hat show yet either. Let's see. You got some serious time on your hands. Delete. This is embarrassing. That's funny. I love that kind of stuff. Haters. I get a lot of clown pictures. Let's see. Cry about it more, bro. How old are you now? And you're still a miserable little excuse for a man. That is very, poignant there. Pasta _ demolisher. It's really funny to just see these people with their accounts. You go onto their accounts and it's like them and their family, their kids are with them, their friends, they're just going throughout their daily life, just exposing everything in their life. And then they come on and feel like they need to defend these celebrities. I really don't quite understand that. Hate from every dimension. I really like that one. Okay, here we go. Cool Guy Club nominee over here. Again, if I'm nominated, I appreciate it. This is a great one. Dork. That's right. Someone just called me a dork. I love that. I haven't been called a dork in decades. So, that's great. Careful, Tom. He's going to put a ooga booga spell on you. That's not who I am. That's not the type of magic that I do. I don't put spells or curses on anyone. So let's get back. Let's see what else we have. Maybe one day your podcast will be as big as theirs. So that's very nice of you. Try putting some of that crusty beard on your bald ass head. Again, attacking my looks when one of their supposedly biggest, favorite comedians, again, we're both just old bald white guys with white beards. And you played for a blue check mark. This one's interesting. It has 656 likes. So 656 people not only looked at Tom's post, then they saw my comment. Then they went through 100 replies to my comment, found this one about a blue check mark, which had already, there had been so many other blue check. They found that one and liked it for some reason. I don't get it. But, again, most of those comments were just typical your mom's house nonsense, right? Again, it's part of the trolling that Tom has taught his fans to do, this big troll army that he's created. But we have one last comment that I think we need to look at a little more closely. And before we do, here is a self-harm warning. Now, folks, the topic of self-harm is very serious, and it's not one that we are going to take lightly here. And to be honest, I almost didn't make this video until this comment came in. Now, I knew a comment of this level would eventually hit the comment section, right? A reply to my negative comment. I knew something like this would happen. The Your Mom's House fans just can't help themselves. So again, here's a warning before we read it. So this comment is from Lavi Gerard, and he says, take some sleeping pills and wash it down with some vodka. Okay, let me read that one more time. Again, this is in response to a negative comment on one of Tom Segura's Instagram posts. This is a Your Mom's House fan, and this is what he said. Take some sleeping pills and wash it down with some vodka. Now, folks, I almost didn't make this video until I saw this comment, but I thought this is perfect fucking timing. Since what I like to call the Pour So-So vodka exclusive release, the exclusive launch just occurred just a few weeks ago. That's right. Tom and Bert have come together for their Pour So-So vodka, some off the shelf white label vodka that they just slapped their logo on, and they're now trying to sell it to their fans. So again, we have one of their fans saying, take some sleeping pills and wash it down with some Pour So-So vodka. Do you think that's funny, Tom? Do you think it's funny that your fans are telling a disabled veteran to take pills and wash it down with your Pour So-So vodka? Do you think that's funny, Tom? Because I do. I think it's fucking hilarious, and it is exactly what I was looking for. It was exactly the type of post that I was waiting for to really prove the point of how vile and just awful the Your Mom's House fan base has become. And, you know, it's tough because, again, like I said, Tom's been taking a lot of flack. He's been attacking his fans directly, calling them pores, right? You know, just constantly berating him or berating the fans during his podcast, okay? And so I was wondering, like, now that Tom is trying to become more mainstream, right? Because that's what you say you're doing. You're making television. What are the advertisers going to think about this vile crew of fans that you are going to drag with you? Do you think ABC, CBS, and NBC are going to appreciate seeing your fans make comments like this all over their social media? But what's more important here is over the last few years, fans of Tom have seen a change in him, which has kind of put him in the situation that he's in now. And again, because I've been such a longtime fan, I kind of pointed out that change in him. I think it started with the basketball injury. Okay. All of you've seen the basketball injury. I'm not going to show footage, video. I'm not going to show photos. We're going to leave that type of gratuitous violence for the Your Mom's House podcast. That's what they do best. Because I actually have empathy with Tom and what happened with him on the basketball court that day. Again, I'm the same age. I deal with my own health issues. And if I had an injury like that, that would really kick my ass. And so I really watched closely after that to see how long it would take Tom to rebound. And his rebound was very fast. And what was interesting is that since then, he's become more famous than ever, right? And so that brought up some questions. So Tom, after your accident, when you were in those darkest days afterwards, when you were in so much pain, I can't imagine how painful that must have been. Just the physical pain that you were dealing with, those dark days of the physical pain. And then the humiliation on top of that, knowing that this video is out there, right? wondering if this comedic empire that you've been building is crumbling all around you. Are you going to even be able to return to your craft, right? What happened in those darkest days? Who did you make a deal with during those dark times? Because again, you had a miraculous rebound and you've become more famous than ever. What did you offer in those darkest hours out there in the abyss of pain? What was that deal? Did you make your friend Bert pour so-so vodka out of the poison cup? You know the cup that I'm talking about. That's pretty interesting. So the results of this experiment have truly just left me with one question, and that is this. Now that Tom has become Garth, will his troll army turn on him? And folks, it's going to take time. I guess, over the next few years, we are going to see whether the monster that Tom has created, will it turn on him now that he's just going to be this mainstream whatever, right? A mainstream comedian making television and movies. I mean, it's all going to be awful. No one's going to watch it, right? Well, I mean, the people that will probably be a bunch of boomers. And again, they're going to be bringing on these mainstream advertisers. What are your fans going to do now that you've become Garth? So, in the meantime, folks, I have something very special for you. Get your Pour So-So vodka teas over at my Victory Work Apparel Etsy shop. They're going to be available for a limited time. And for those of you who are new to the Mind War, join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar. And as always, folks, remember, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. All right, folks, let's jump back into the First Earth Battalion. We left off on Chapter 5, titled Earthwork. In the end, progress is a reflection of how good we are to each other and to our mother, the Earth. Here are the beginnings of earthwork, projects that could dramatically change the quality of our home, the planet. Organized military forces are the perfect catalysts for this action. Nature by itself is beautiful, but nature nurtured by people is paradise. So again, we've talked about this before. If you don't have a cause in your life, environmentalism isn't a bad one to pick up on, especially if you're doing it for the right reasons, trying to get rid of pollution and make your local environment healthier. And it's interesting, the author's talking about taking the military and transforming it from a institution of death care and changing it into an institution of life care. Think of the amount of money that the world spends every year on the military and the amount of destruction that the military does to the earth. Think if they redirected their focus to rebuilding the earth in man's image. Let's see. Hark, it's the nature's guard. Natural wilderness is wonderful, but can't really compare with the results when man consciously organizes and nurtures the plants and waterways. The lack of care and attention paid to our Mother Earth is criminal compared with the results that could be forthcoming with a massive organized effort. Again, this book was written over 40 years ago. We see a lot of the effort that he's talking about. We see the fruits of that labor happening today. Environmentalism is a huge industry, and it really is doing good things. It's a constant battle. It's probably one of those 2 steps forward, 1 step backward type of situations when it comes to the environment. And, I don't like to just say global warming, but more dealing with pollution, deforestation, just urban sprawl, all those type of things. And just, the overabundance of materialism, right? So armies have traditionally served as evolutionary agents in organizing and training nature. West Point was established to train military civil engineers. The Corps of Engineers today manages the nation's waterways. The work of massive reforestation, for example, is a natural for an organization with discipline, communications, and transportation. Again, with all of the tools that the military has at hand, think if they redirected their focus on rebuilding nature. Using school children and large elements of the unemployed sector, the Army could restore the ecological integrity of the Earth Mother as a primary job. They could support and project large elements of society into the countryside. Now, you guys might not have caught that. The author's talking about using large elements of the unemployed. That's right. We're going to put the unemployed to work. Okay. So for those of us who are receiving governmental assistance for living, we are going to, with whatever capabilities that we have, we are going to have to pitch in on this, right? This rebuilding of the earth. And I think that's an amazing way to do it. It's going to be very controversial, telling people to get off their asses and get out there and get to work, especially in nature. People are going to say, no, that's inappropriate. You can't do that. You can't make people work, right? Well, maybe. When the day comes when a large combat force isn't needed to fight abroad, then the alternatives to combat must be surfaced as intelligently thought out plans that can generate the enthusiasm of soldiers and members of the community alike. Forests can be planted by children propelled to the site by Army Reserve or active units. Okay, well, we're going to put a bunch of kids on helicopters and fly them out into the middle of nowhere to plant trees. I mean, that sounds a little interesting, but well, let's see. These forests could be designed to affect weather patterns, enhance the beauty of the countryside with some interesting planting designs, and even be used to make energy efficient pathways for aircraft over the deserts wherein the air is thin. Combining forests with new low-energy waterway transportation and new canals would restore the supportive potential of the land to support the nation in an era of diminishing resources. It's the natural guard. So that is interesting, where he talks about if we build or if we plant forests in certain areas, that it's actually going to affect our overall climate. Again, that climate change. Next page. Tree tactics. One of Mother Earth's pieces of super technology is the tree. Can you imagine tree paved pathways passing through the desert to give more lift to aircraft? Can you imagine what impact it would have if the children of Egypt and Israel planted a spiral forest in the desert? It would provide an integrated border, eco-consciousness, and a visible reminder more striking than the Great Wall of China. So the author has big dreams, but we see big dreams like that being talked about and being worked on right now. In Saudi Arabia, they are building a new city out in the middle of the desert called The Line, right? It's an amazing feat of mankind. We see these type of cities starting to spring up, or at least being planned for, all around the world. And that's a good thing. We need new innovative cities like this and ideas like this. talking, you know, the author's talking about in the middle of the desert over in the Middle East, creating a massive forest that looks like a spiral. I mean, that would be awesome, right? So we can do this. We can consciously redesign Mother Nature. We have the ability now. Just do we have the drive to do it? Can we make money off of it? Because, of course, money is going to be the issue to do any of these things. And I think there's a way to do that. Next page. Soldier technology. Let's see. Eco force operations. The manpower, communications, organizations, and transport exist in today's military to transform the countryside. Ask the military to spearhead and drive to replant the western desert areas, to connect the canals between Canada and the U.S., to harvest in the southeast, and to make all the post-energy solvent by 1990. Again, this is a couple decades ago, folks. They can do it. Sorry, they didn't do it. They can. They could have. They haven't. They will. But it's going to take time. And so, again, this idea of reusing the military for other purposes. And again, like we've talked about in some of the past episodes here in the Mind War podcast, especially when it comes to young white males joining the military, we see how for the longest time they pushed you away. They said they didn't want you. They called you racist and all sorts of other derogatory terms. And now they're begging you to come back and join that same military where they want to send you over to fight in a war against other white men in Russia. Just doesn't seem like the best idea right now. So instead of joining the military, again, you've joined the mind war here today, and we're coming up with new peaceful, ideas, new purposes to direct your energy towards. Because 20 years from now, here's what's going to happen, especially if you're in your young 20s. Like I was in my 20s, I joined the United States Marine Corps. A year later, 9/11 occurred. In the next 20 years of my life were dedicated to fighting the war on terrorism and the destruction and kind of rebuilding of the Middle East. So if you're in your young 20s and considering joining the military, think about what you want your next 20 years to be. You could take that traditional military path, or you could become an eco warrior, right? You could fight for Mother Earth. I know that sounds a little hippy-dippy, but again, what do you want your life to be 20 years from now? Do you want to have those memories of the destruction and death, that death care like we call it? Or 20 years from now, do you want to look back at your legacy and say, no, I took a different path, the path less taken, and I worked towards life care and rebuilding our planet? That would be pretty honorable. Next page. Let's build a garden everywhere. In the average community, modern energy-saving approaches run up against many of the most powerful politicians. They are not evil. They just want to prop up the companies already in operation. Isn't that true? The military, on the other hand, have communities without vested interest. Again, high tech and high folk working together. Now, this was written 40 years ago. I don't know how much has changed when it comes to those people who the author says have vested interests in the military. But, buddy, it's still all about money. And that's honestly, I think, all that they care about, right? So, again, if we could redirect that money towards a focus on death care, and, again, refocusing that money on life care, that could be great. But this idea of high tech and high folk working together. The high technology is here today. We see it all around us. But now we need to get the folk, the men and women that make up this country, that make up the world. Because again, we are part of the New World Order now. We are New World citizens. It's about us taking back our agency, us demanding what the future hold, and demanding a future of peace and prosperity. We can do it today. We can have a healthy planet 20 years from now, but it's going to take people really waking up, not just kind of saying that they're an environmentalist, not just, saying that they support this or that subject, but actually participating and doing their part. That's what I'm here. That's what I'm doing. This is why we fight the mind war. Next page. Let the Army help. Military organizations of the world have all been used to do evolutionary projects. The American Army has been the leader in evolutionary work in this country. Race integration, computer revolution, advanced schools, social mobility, rehabilitation, sex integration, system revolution, research and development. The Army is a key element in the evolutionary jump about to occur. The National Guard will power the Alpha Force and human rescue. The Army Reserve will catalyze major evolutionary projects as the Beta Force. An active Army will train and run the Gamma Force as they operate strategically to resolve conflicts. The planning for evolutionary work and the attainment of paradise is already part of the Army's Delta Force. Again, the author uses very kind of fun topics. The book was written by a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army back in the late 70s, early 80s. He's using that military mindset. Again, any type of real First Earth Battalion that would be doing this type of work is going to look a little different than today's military, but maybe use some of those same organizational structures. Next page. There's lots to do. What's your solution? So the Alpha Force, natural disaster rescue, nuclear security rescue, bio-rescue, eco-rescue, the Natural Guard, okay? Instead of the National Guard, again, the Natural Guard. And really, these things, this is what's fun about what we're doing here in the Mind War. We've talked about it before. Creating your own team, becoming your own character in your personal life. We've talked about you are going to become many different characters. It's okay. The best thing to do is to become conscious of those characters that you have to play. It helps deal with the emotional issues. When you go to work every day and you have to put on that character of the employee, instead of dragging home all of that negative energy with you from your workplace, you can go in and say, I don't care about this job. I'm there as a character. The character that I'm playing is someone who cares about this job and is here to do X, Y, Z, right? But at the end of your workday, you take the character off and you go home and you can be your normal self without dragging it all with you. And again, what we do here in the Mind War is we talk about these subjects and we use these type of languages and labels, right? Alpha Force, Beta Force, Delta Force, all this kind of stuff, this kind of military overlay. Again, just because the authors that we worked with were in the military. That's why we talk about it in that way. But again, it's fun. It's a fun way to think about creating your own team. You could create your own Alpha Force, your Natural Guard. Make some hoodies, make some t-shirts. If you want to, let me know. I'd be glad to help you. The Beta Force, the Freedoms Forest Project, the Sweet Spots of the Cities Project, the New Horizon Townships, the Wildlife Waterways, Connections, Music in the Wind, Cosmoculture, Good Works, Artists in Actions, and Right Actions. So these are all just different projects that the author thinks would be interesting to work on. And things like he titles it here, the New Horizon Townships Project. So again, like we talked about, there are cities being built around the world today by different countries and different groups of countries that really are trying to change the way that people live. And that's a good thing. We need to work and progress towards more advanced cities and way of living. Let's see. It says the Gamma Force is the Academy, the International Team, the Hostage Intervention, Terrorist Intervention, and Nuclear Diffusion. That is well beyond our pay grade, folks. Next page. And that brings us to chapter 6. So let's go ahead and leave it here for today, folks. Chapter 5 was pretty short, but we've already kind of used a lot of our allotted time for today's episode. So for as far as the First Earth Battalion is concerned, we're going to leave it there. We will start with Chapter 6 when we pick up next with spirit work. So stay tuned for one more story. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Folks, thanks for sticking around this late into the episode. So as you know, a few episodes ago, I talked about how when I was at work as a security guard at a local community center, a man pulled a knife on me, threatened my life. It took the cops hours and hours, over 3 hours to finally arrest him. It took multiple threats. He had to threaten multiple people, other employees with this knife that he had, even though the cops had, taken him into custody multiple times. For some reason, they didn't pat him down and take his knife away. But the result of that, and this has been several weeks now, the result of that is at first I told my employers, hey, listen, I need the next day off. I'm not coming back to work the next day. And that was on a Thursday, which is basically my end of the week. So during that weekend, I called my supervisor and I said, here's the deal. I need about 2 weeks off. At this point, I was already exhausted. And to have all of that occur, and those of you that have been following the Mind War podcast, a lot went on in my life at that time. And I really just needed some time away, right? So during those 2 weeks, I, again, took the time to reevaluate that job. And really, like I talked about at the beginning of this episode, I took Scott Adams' advice to heart. And I was like, these people hate me when I go into work. Not the employees and not all of the visitors, but being a security guard automatically makes you a target of hate for people who've been taught to hate any type of authority figure. And I thought to myself, you know what? I got away with it this time. I left a dangerous situation unscathed, but why am I going to push it? So I called my supervisor and I said, hey man, I cannot come back as a security guard. I think it would be best if we used an outside security agency because some of the other buildings that were part of our program were already using an outside security force. And I was like, let's just take this opportunity, this incident, and use it as the excuse to bring them in. And I said, now I understand that kind of puts me out of a job, but if there's anything else that's available, let me know. Take your time. I'm not trying to create a position out of thin air or whatever. If something comes up, let me know. And they were very gracious. And within just a few days, they had offered me another position. Now, one of the things that our community center worked with was a mobile library, a bookmobile, right? And I was offered to assist with the person that drives and does the bookmobile. It was a very nice offer. I contemplated it for a few days and looked at the schedule, and it was, again, a nice offer, but it was kind of the opposite of what I was looking for. Again, at the beginning of this episode, I talked about how I really appreciate my alone time, and this was kind of the opposite. Now I was going to be thrust into society every day, going out there into the community, different locations on a daily basis, and I was like, I just don't think that I'm up for that right now. And although it was very difficult, I said, I'm going to resign, right? I'm going to take the plunge and try to find something different. And so thankfully I did. I found some work that I can do online that hopefully can supplement some of my income to help me just pay some of those regular bills, right? But what was more interesting was the result of saying, listen, I'm going to trust my gut this time. Because what happened is, leading up to me returning to work, I started to have some pretty severe panic attacks. Really, it was starting to get bad, right? And I hadn't felt that way in a long time. And I was like, you know what? I've never trusted this gut feeling. I've always just pushed through it, committed to whatever I was, supposedly going to do, even though I hated the idea of doing it, even though I would have like panic attacks and just not want to go do these things. I always just gave in. I was like, no, I'm just going to go do it. This time I trusted my gut and I said, I'm going to find something else. I'm going to go on my own. And the result of that, folks, was so amazing. This weight was lifted off of my shoulders and just fell to the ground. And now, of course, there were still all kinds of unanswered questions. Again, financially, how is this going to work? Some of it's going to be very difficult. And that's why, again, I appreciate all of your support. Everyone who has joined the Mind War over on Patreon, everyone who's visited my Etsy shop. It means so much to me. So it felt so good just kind of saying, you know what, that stress, that idea of upcoming stress, it's gone. And now I just kind of get to do what I need to do. And folks, for the next week, I slept like crazy. I didn't realize how fucking exhausted I was. I was maybe awake 6 to 8 hours a day. And when I was awake, I'd be awake for just a few hours at a time. I would take naps in between. Like I would wake up and maybe eat some breakfast, take a hot shower, play with Leo out in the backyard a little bit, and then we'd be right back in bed. I was so exhausted. And really, I started to realize that I just have been running and gunning for, over 20 years, right? 25, almost 30 years, just minimal sleep. Because one of the things that I realized, especially in my last real professional job, was that I always had so much anxiety about going to work that every moment that I was out of work, I wanted to experience. So I would literally get out of work at 4 p.m. and I would stay up easily till midnight, 1, sometimes 2 o'clock, and then have to wake up 4 to 6 hours later to get right back to work. And I did this again for over a decade. 2 decades, right? And it was like, again, just that feeling of having to go back into work almost as some type of punishment, to constantly be put in this stressful situations and situations where the anxiety was going to be so high. I was always so desperate to not have to feel that. I would just stay awake till the latest hours that I could. And often back then, I've talked about this several times, it would be, I would stay awake that whole time, but I would also be drinking and doing drugs, right? A lot of smoking weed, taking edibles, drinking beer, sometimes pain pills, which was mostly just ibuprofen and stuff. I never really got into the hard stuff, but, it was very destructive. It was very exhausting. It really wore me down. And again, over this last week or two, I kind of realized just how fucking tired I've been. And it felt great. It felt great to really just sleep when I needed to sleep. This has been a huge eye-opener too. When you are taken off of a schedule and you're allowed to just live naturally and allow your body to naturally adapt to life, and you respond to your body when it needs something, when you're able to go take a nap when you're fucking tired, and not force your way through it because you have an artificial schedule that you have to follow because of work or something like that. It really was amazing to just eat when I was ready. One of the things I found is that when I wake up now, I'll have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and just a small snack. And I usually don't eat till like 3 in the afternoon. And this is if I wake up at, 8 or 9 in the morning, right? I've found that hunger doesn't come on until much later in the afternoon versus kind of that forced schedule eating where you're like, well, I got to have breakfast and then I got to have lunch and then I got to have some snacks and then come home for dinner and all this, right? I was like, wow, this is much different. And I found myself recently, I've really been eating, 1, maybe 2 meals. So that ability to live your life based on the needs, your own physical needs at your own body's time, it's been very interesting. And now I understand we can't all do that because of finances. Again, I think we'll be talking about finances more in the future and future episodes of the Mind War. But, I just wanted to fill you all in. It's been kind of an interesting saga to follow, right? We talked about the violence in my hometown here in Saginaw, Michigan, the 3rd most violent city in America. That the post I made about that was banned by TikTok, still banned today. And what was funny, the resulting video that I made talking about how I was banned by TikTok then suggested to me that I use that as one of my promo videos and pay them $20 for them to promote that video to everyone else, where I'm literally trashing TikTok for banning me. These fucking social media companies, folks, they're wild. It's been so much fun studying them, seeing how they work. Again, that was a big part of today's episode, experimenting with social media, seeing how it works, right? So, again, just if you're out there, if you have that time and that ability to take a different path, right? Trust your gut, and hopefully you will have some time that you can relax. Hopefully you're going to find a way in life to be able to live more naturally according to your own body or according to the things that you need versus what an artificial schedule needs. And again, I appreciate you following through this story. It's been a lot of fun. Again, we went from the violent city, the violence coming to my workplace, and all the resulting, pretty dramatic changes that have occurred in my life. Because again, now I am able to work from home. We'll see how this turns out. I'll keep you all updated, and maybe we'll go into a little more about what I do working from home. I think you guys will really enjoy that. But until then, folks, thank you so much for being here. And as always, remember, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.